Hey, welcome back to ILR Performance. In today's video, we're going to look at this Tecate 4 motor. We're going to jump through a few quick pictures of the rebuild. It's a freshly rebuilt motor. It is 1mm overbore on a sleeved motor, so it is 258 cc's now. And we're going to throw it on the dyno. We're going to do a few dyno runs. We're going to talk about what we put in it. Thanks for watching. It's basically a stock motor. The only thing that's been done to it internally is it has been re-sleeved, but the porting is all stock. There's no port size increases or timing changes. I did mill 40 thousandths off the head while I had the motor apart to tighten up the squish and then rechambered the head. It has a stock ignition in it. I've recently rebuilt the ignition. When I went to dyno it, I didn't have any spark, or when I did get spark, it was really weak. So I went ahead and put a better coil in the stator. When we run these on the dyno, it's with the stock stator, stock CDI box, but I do run a PVL coil. You'll see the PVL coil in the dyno videos. This particular motor didn't come with an intake at all, so I've put a stock 88 reed block on it with Carbon Tech reeds, no reed spacer. It has a high flow intake manifold and a 38 electron high velocity power jet carb. It has just a off-the-shelf NGK BR8ES spark plug in it. It has 205 pounds of compression when the motor's good and warm, which is about right for one of these motors when it's good and fresh. This is a really good example of what your average Tecate is. And the dyno results are going to be pretty close to what you get if you take a stock motor, put some good reeds on the factory block, put a good 38mm carburetor on it, put a good aftermarket pipe on it, and just dial it in as far as jetting and timing. Makes a pretty noticeable increase in horsepower, as you'll see when we get it on the dyno. There's about 35 minutes on this motor runtime now since I rebuilt it. It is a full rebuild. It got a fully rebuilt crankshaft, new main bearings, crank seals. In fact, I replaced all the seals in the motor whenever I do a full rebuild. Got a good hone job, a fresh piston and rings, all new gaskets. So it's your basic good quality overhaul. And then we put it on the dyno. We run it for about 20 minutes, try and put 15 to 20 minutes on it before we start leaning on it to give things a chance to break in. And then we do some low RPM runs at part throttle under a load. And then we do our last few runs once we get the jetting pretty close at full throttle all the way up. So to keep the video short, I'm only going to show you one dyno run, and then we'll look at a couple of the graphs, and you can see what this little motor does. All right, we're going to do a playback on a couple of the best runs from this particular motor. The run we're going to watch now is the best combination that we got after I put it on the dyno. The only thing I did was jetting and timing changes till I got it where we needed it to start really well, make a good clean run, got good EGTs, good water temperature, nice smooth running motor. This thing runs really, really nice. So that's the end of the run. Most people watch the horsepower number, which is what everybody's looking for, is the big numbers, and you can see that where a stock Tecate motor makes 31, 32 horse, this motor only made about 34 horsepower. So let's graph it out and see where it made its power at. So this is where the motor made its power at. You can see we have a really nice smooth power band coming up. We have this beautiful smooth torque curve. But you can see that we peaked at 34.23 horsepower, clear back at 7,400 RPM. If we come all the way up here to 8,000 RPM, where the pipe makes its peak horsepower typically, you can still see that we made 34.06. So we didn't really lose any horsepower, but basically between 7,400 and 8,000, 8,100 RPM, we didn't gain any horsepower. It was really flat. That's not normal for this particular pipe. I would have expected to see more peak horsepower out of this motor. So I took a look at it, and then I realized that, like everybody else, sometimes we get in a hurry and we put everything together. And I've been running this pipe, or I had been running this pipe last on the 352, which made a lot of horsepower and a lot of heat. And when I put it on this particular motor, I didn't replace the O-rings. They were in really good shape, but I didn't replace them. And I didn't have the coupler between the rubber sleeve between the silencer and the pipe. So I didn't have a good seal on the pipe. When I looked at the motor, I could see there was a little bit of leakage around there. And that tends to give what the kind of horsepower output that this graph indicates to me. So what I did was I went back and I pulled the pipe off. I installed a brand new ILR Performance pipe install kit, which is a brand new pipe mount, 2 brand new high temp O-rings, and a special stepped silicone sleeve that goes between the silencer and the pipe body to seal that back up. And this is what we got after we made that change. We did not make a jetting change. We didn't make a timing change. We didn't change anything else. All we did was seal up the pipe, and these are the results. So this is the playback run after we sealed up the exhaust pipe. Okay. You can see that while we still made a really nice smooth pull all the way through in terms of power, there was no big jumps or anything like that, we continued to pull past that 7,400 RPM peak, and we gained horsepower all the way up through. So let's see what that graphs out at. So you can see here, clear back here at 7,000 RPM, we made 34.43. So we made as much horsepower, 400 RPMs earlier, as we did on our peak on our previous run. At about 7,400 RPM, we were clear up to 36.62, so we'd already gained a couple more horsepower. And then here at the peak at 7,400 RPM, we made 38.1 horsepower. So we gained more horsepower than we had originally, and we did that simply by sealing up the exhaust pipe. What that does is that provides a better vacuum signal from the pipe back into the transfer ports, and it allows the pipe to create a vacuum and pull more fuel up the transfer ports at the higher RPM, where crankcase pumping doesn't create enough pressure for long enough to push all the fuel out of the crankcase up into the top end. So that's where the shape of the pipe starts to really make a big difference. The other thing that we did was, by sealing up the pipe, we held the heat in the pipe better, which allowed the sound wave to travel a little bit faster, which effectively makes the pipe act like it's a little bit shorter, because the sound wave can travel faster, create a better pulse wave. So we get the combination of better scavenging initially and better feedback on the top, which creates more horsepower all the way through. So you can see that it's a little thing to do, but you can see what a big difference that makes, just sealing up the exhaust pipe. So when you put your motors back in, you put your pipes back together. If they're leaking, if you're having leakage around the head pipe where it's slobbering on your cylinder, or you're having leakage between your silencer and the main body of your pipe, that's how much horsepower you're losing. You're probably losing 3 to 4 horsepower. On a big horsepower motor, you can be losing 5 and 6 horsepower. So you spend a lot of money on your horsepower goodies. That's a real interesting or really effective way to make sure that you're getting the most out of your powers. Get those pipes sealed up properly. 8,400 RPM was about 300 RPM, maybe 400 RPM farther than I thought this motor would want to pull. However, I did make a pipe mod on this Bill's pipe when I had it on the 352 by increasing the head pipe. So I'm pretty sure that's where the extra few RPMs coming from. So anyway, good motor. Thanks for watching the video. As always, if you like the videos, please subscribe. If you subscribe, you get notification whenever the next video comes out. And if you have some things you'd like to see, some motors you'd like to see dynoed, throw it in the comments. I read the comments, and if it's something that comes up, I'll make a video of it. Thanks for watching. Bye.